I don't share. I don't share that optimism with you.
A friend of mine is a Palace supporter. Got a buddy who's also I know very well, who's a Brighton supporter. Now, Palace and Brighton have quite a rivalry,
Right.
even though we're not really. Well, we are fairly close together.
Yeah.
But the Palace, of course, is on the outskirts of London.
Yeah.
Although we go there, it's quite a long drive for us to go to Palace because we live much nearer to Brighton than Palace. But anyway, there is this rivalry, and they have this thing the last few years. They drink in the pub and they say, right, whoever, if Palace beat Brighton in the league at the end of the season, the other chap's got to wear the Palace shirt all day on the Saturday or Sunday after the season when they go out and about for a drink or whatever, and
Yeah.
vice versa. So the last few years, Brighton have finished above Palace. So poor Matt, my mate, has had to have the indignity of wearing a Brighton shirt for kind of most of a weekend. And the other one sort of rubs it in. Well, last season, on the last day of the season,
Yeah.
the results meant that Palace finished above Brighton. So I saw Matt a few days after that. I said, well, Graham had to wear the Palace shirt. He said, no. He said, I let him cash out a couple of weeks before because it didn't look as if Palace were going to get above Brighton. So they made an agreement and they said,
Yeah.
okay, we won't wear each other's shirts because, it looks like it's not going to finish like that. So he didn't get the joy of seeing Graham wearing a
Oh.
Palace shirt. So he missed out. But I thought maybe we could do the same thing about Saturday, but then I don't have a Manchester United shirt. I just spit there, you noticed. And you won't have a Palace shirt either. So we'll have to do it sort of pretend or something. But next week we'll have losers embarrassment and
Right.
winners
And
elation.
when is it like? Yeah. Right. Okay.
So if Palace lose 7-0 on Saturday, I may not be here next week.
It's like just
I'll
like
be,
Femi did when
I'll be
England
too
won.
embarrassed. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the game anyway. Looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
So am I. So am I. Yeah. Now we almost talked about the gender pay gap
There you go.
in the in the alien spaceship, but I think it's here that we might talk about it as well. Now there's a footballer called I think it's called Douglas Lewis.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, and his girlfriend's called Alicia Lehmann.
Alicia. Alicia Lehmann. Yeah.
Alicia
She's
Lehmann.
Swiss, I think. She's
Yeah,
Swiss. Yeah.
yeah. And
I
she was
think.
saying that she does the same work, play for the same club, women and men's, but she earns 100 times less money than her boyfriend. Um, and I've heard comedians joke about it, right? About this gender pay gap thing. And although I laughed about it, I know it's a serious matter, but the guy, I can't remember what his name was now, I'll find it. But he talked about something that was actually serious and realistic about it. He said, right, how many women go to watch the women's game? How many of the women that are complaining about the female counterpart getting paid less actually make an effort to, either buy the memorabilia or actually buy tickets to go and see the game. And he said that's where the women should focus on. They should focus on supporting themselves rather than, just saying because, if they're not getting that much audience or ticket sales, which audience we can translate into ticket sales, where they're going to get the money to pay them. And that was a good point. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, yeah, I pick up on that point. And I mean, just to sort of give a bit of background, Alicia Lehmann,
Yeah,
until last season, I think she played for Aston Villa.
right. Okay.
And she's a good footballer, but she probably
Yeah.
Until last season, I think she played for Aston Villa,
Right. Okay.
and she's a good footballer, but she probably makes. I'm not sure whether quite as much money as Douglas Luiz because they play. I think they play in Italy, don't they? In Juventus, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, um, she when she was playing for Villa the last few years, I think it's fair to say she was the most marketable female footballer. She's very very attractive, um, and she has, I believe, she has contracts with some fashion companies, etc., etc.
Right.
So I'm sure she's making, a huge pot of gold in those contracts. And good luck to her. She obviously is good enough for what those companies want her to do, to
Yeah.
model, etc., etc. And that's a point in a way, because what we're talking about with this gender pay gap in football is, the market itself, market conditions. I thought it was, without getting at all political, but I
Yeah.
thought it was silly after the shambles, frankly, of Ticketmaster and the Oasis tickets
Right.
recently. And it was a shambles, but the government then said, oh, they're going to step in to
Right.
make sure that in future this sort of can't happen. Well, that in my view, that's absolute nonsense, whichever government may have wanted to do that, because you've got the market, a market on anything, whether it's houses, tickets, football, it will find its own level.
Yeah.
People who stayed on for those tickets all day, which a lot did, I mean, I did, but, without going into all what happened there,
Yeah.
but they got to the point of being offered what was left, and then they found the price for the seats that were left had kind of gone from like 150 to 450 pounds.
Yeah.
And of course, this is what the government picked up on and said, oh, it's profiteering and so on. Well, it is. But the point is that anybody who got to that point and, thought, well, 450, okay, I still want to get them, or I can't afford it.
Yeah.
People make their choices based on the market. Now, I don't condone Ticketmaster. I think they don't always do it very well,
Right.
but ultimately they do a job, and
Yeah.
you have to play to the market conditions. Now, with football, really, the women's game has come a long way in the last few years. I mean,
Indeed.
I like the women's game.
Indeed.
It
Yeah.
is in many ways a different game to men's, because I think the strength is a bit different, the speed is a bit different, but there's a lot of very skillful women footballers. There really is. But in another sense, it's a bit like tennis, where, of course, there isn't really a gender pay gap.
Right.
Years ago, a lot of top women players insisted that they got paid the same as men. Now, in many ways, I guess that's good. But
Yeah.
if you take the four majors in tennis, Wimbledon, France, USA, and Australia,
Yeah.
then the men play the best of 5 sets in every round. The women still play the best of three. And I've always been surprised that women in the days of feminism um, are happy to accept equal pay when they're not actually doing equal work, as if they're accepting, oh, yeah, but we're weaker than the men. We can't play best of 5 sets, which
Yeah.
I don't believe. I think they could,
Yeah.
but they still take the money. So a woman's final, for example, could last 2 sets, could be 6-1, 6-2, could be over in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Many men's finals, not all, but many, go to 5 hours plus because they're playing 5 sets, actually really playing 5 sets.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different situation. But the prize money probably at the moment is about 2 million for the winner and
Yeah.
probably 1 million for the runner up. But the woman will get the same. And it just seems a bit inequitable. And much as I am a fan of women's sports and equality,
Yeah.
I think in a way there's a bit of disparity. And the other thing of that is, I mean, men do have their own tennis competitions, and so do women.
Yeah.
When I go to Wimbledon, I've been every year. I think for the last, I'm very fortunate. The last 15, 16 years, I'm very
Right.
fortunate, because I have a son who gets the tickets for us.
Yeah.